Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Eloise. I hope everyone is doing great. In today's video, we're talking about a fragrance from one of my favorite perfume houses, Fiore D'Ambra from the house of Profumum Roma. For those of you who have watched other videos on this channel, you guys know that I mention the house of Profumum Roma often. It is one of the perfume houses that I've been delving into, and I really enjoy the fragrances. It's an Italian house, which is, I believe, still a family-run perfume house out of Rome, Italy. And the fragrances tend to focus on a specific note or specific sort of scent profile. For example, Ambra Aurea is an amber fragrance in the collection. They have one that focuses on neroli. They have a fragrance that I actually just ordered that focuses on tuberose. So the note listings, if you take a look at the fragrances on the website and their note listings, they're not super complex, long lists of notes. They're pretty simplified, and their fragrances are known to be pretty linear. So with the house of Profumum Roma, I feel like what you get in the beginning when you spray one of their fragrances is what you get throughout all the way to the dry down. And if you don't like it when you first spray it, you're probably not going to enjoy that fragrance. So even though their fragrances are not the most complex and they're considered pretty linear, I do appreciate that they're long-lasting, high-quality fragrances, and I also appreciate from the ones that I've gotten my nose on, I haven't smelled every single fragrance in the house, but from the ones that I've gotten my nose on from the house, I do think that they produce high-quality fragrances and that nicely represent either the scent profile or the note or the flower that they're intending to represent. In other words, I think they do a good job with their fragrances. Sometimes I like complex fragrances, and like I said, these are more on the linear side, but I do have an appreciation for the fragrances in this house, and I own quite a few, and I've been testing some that I don't own. So I have Suavissima, which is like a baby powder in a bottle. It's very clean, beautiful fragrance. I have Ninfea, which is a floral fragrance with this grass note that has a little bit of freshness, and I think it's going to be great in the summer and warmer weather. I also have Ambra Aurea, which is a pretty popular amber fragrance by the house of Profumum Roma, which shares slight similarities to Chanel's Le Lion. It's in that sort of amber wheelhouse. I recently ordered their tuberose fragrance, so I'm excited to get that. And I have a decant of Confetto, which is a fragrance that has an almond note with amber, vanilla, I think there's oak moss and anise. And it was the almond note in there that attracted me to the fragrance, and so I got a decant. I'm not sure about that one. And this one here is Fiore D'Ambra, which is an amber fragrance with opium flowers and spices. And all of the perfumes in this house come in the 100 ml size bottles like this one, 3.4 fluid ounces, and they're all Eau de Parfum concentration, and they all come in the same presentation, which is a box like this. I took this out of the sleeve, so I don't think I saved the sleeve, but the box is just a cardboard, nice quality cardboard box. And the fragrances themselves come the way that the Serge Lutens fragrances come, and that is without the atomizer in the bottle. And so they come with a screw cap instead of the atomizer being placed in the bottle. You have to put the atomizer in yourself, and it screws on and off pretty easily. And they also include these items in here. So the idea is that you can decant the fragrances into a travel size bottle. So you can easily take the atomizer off and decant with the dropper and have a travel size of your fragrance. So the bottles themselves are nothing really to write home about. They are all rectangular glass. And on the back is the year of the fragrance release. This one says 2004. I don't know if it's going to focus. And the cap themselves are actually really cheap, and it appears that I can bend. I'm not the strongest person in the world, and it appears that I could easily bend this, which is a little strange considering that these are close to $300 a bottle, although I think every single one of my fragrances I purchased from a discounter. And the most that I paid, to be honest, is about $175 for both the Ambra Aurea and the Fiore D'Ambra, which I think maintain their value a bit more because they're pretty popular in the house of Profumum Roma. And the atomizer itself, it's not the best in terms of how it sprays. I feel like sometimes they get a little stuck. So I can't lie, I wish for the price that they would improve the atomizers on these bottles. But nonetheless, I am a fan of the house and I do like the fragrances. So let's talk about Fiore D'Ambra, which I will tell you before I even get into what this smells like. I have a love-hate relationship with this fragrance, and I'm not sure that I'm keeping this. I'm not sure if it's going to stay in my perfume collection. But let's talk about what this smells like. So this was my scent of the day yesterday and today, and I actually wore it a few days last week as well, as I was sort of deciding whether I was going to keep this and also preparing to review the fragrance either way. And I have a dry down here of about 4 or 5 hours. But like I said, these fragrances, for the most part, what you get in the beginning is what you have 4 or 5 hours later. And in terms of longevity, it's 8, 9, 10 hours later. I am getting wafts of the fragrance. Pretty much, I think, every single one of the Profumum Romas in my collection. There are plenty that I haven't gotten my nose on and I haven't experienced. So I really am not in a position to say that every single one of them performs that well. But the ones that I have, including this one, the performance is pretty excellent. 8, 9, 10 hours later, I am enjoying it on myself, which is nice. You spend money, whether it's $200 or $300 on a fragrance, it is nice to be able to enjoy it for the entire day rather than not be able to detect it 4 hours later. I don't need and I don't want to wear a beast mode fragrance that everyone around me is smelling. I just want to be able to enjoy it myself for more than, let's say, 5, 6 hours. And this is excellent in terms of sillage and projection and the longevity. So I'm going to spray it just so that I get my nose on a fresh spray as I talk about this. So I think it's obvious that this is an amber fragrance. And the best way that I can describe this is in layers. In my mind, I experience this fragrance in layers, even though I just finished saying that a lot of the fragrances, including this one, are pretty linear. It does have some level of complexity, let's say, or maybe complexity is not the best word. There are layers to the fragrance. It's not just one note that I'm smelling. I am experiencing several things at the same time. So this comes off to me like an amber fragrance that has some smokiness and is brown in color, like the color of the juice. It's very fitting. It's perfect that it's brown. This is how I'm experiencing it. If the fragrance had a color, it would be brown, this type of brown. So I get something almost smoky, incensey, and there's something about the amber aspect of the fragrance that reminds me a little bit of that Le Lion, Chanel's Le Lion amber DNA with that smokiness that's also in Ambra Aurea, but here it's much more subdued. I just get facets of that smoky amber that would come from the labdanum that's often or sometimes used as part of the amber accord. Here I experience the amber accord as a little smoky and almost incensey, like subtle. And part of it also includes a little bit of powderiness. Sometimes amber fragrances give off a powdery element. This does have that. And it's not super dark, but it does have a little bit of a dark vibe. I guess that goes along with the color that I imagine when I smell this fragrance. And there's a little bit of sweetness, but it's a warm sweetness. There's nothing sugary or overly vanillic about the type of sweetness that's in here. And then you have spices and this opium flower which is not something that I can speak of from experience. I've never smelt an opium flower, but I did do a little reading and a little research on what an opium flower smells like in a fragrance, or what it smells like in general. And basically, an opium flower has some different facets that include floral aspects, but also include spicy aspects to it. And there are also spices to the fragrance. So without knowing exactly what spices are in here, what I experience along with the amber is a floral that has spiced components and that has slightly green components, that's not at all feminine, that has musty components and mossy components. There's something musty about the fragrance that I can't quite put my finger on. And the more and more I thought about it, and the more I wore it and experienced the fragrance, I feel that there's somewhat of a cinnamon spice to this that's sitting on something mossy, that's giving me this overall like musty green floral against this amber, if that makes sense. So although there's the word flower in the name of this fragrance, Fiore D'Ambra, fiore in Italian is flower, it's not a feminine white floral fragrance by any stretch of the imagination. It's a floral fragrance that's spiced with what is, to my nose, like a cinnamon, like a darkened green floral that's mossy and has a good dose of cinnamon sprinkled all over it. So I have this smoky amber that's almost got facets of incense and little facets of chocolate. There's something a little chocolatey about the amber in here. And against this amber is this green floral fragrance that comes off a little musty and mossy with cinnamon sprinkled on top. I feel like the spice that I get in here the most is cinnamon. Now, there could be nutmeg, there could be cloves, I'm not sure, but I get cinnamon in here, and I get a musty component to the fragrance, and that brings me to the next thing. It's this mustiness, like when a sweater or an article of clothing is left wet for an extended period of time, and you have something almost musty to it, something a little old smelling and mossy. That is what is bothering me about the fragrance. That's what I'm not sure about. It's almost giving me a very vintage vibe, and I like vintage leaning fragrances. I have plenty of fragrances that have oak moss, that are chypras and are a little on the vintagey side of things. But there is something about this one that I'm just not loving. But at the same time, I'm a little torn because I also enjoy it. So I have days where I like it and days where I'm thinking, I'm just not going to wear this. So I'm on the fence. And it's because this is coming off super vintagey and there's something a little musty about it. But objectively speaking, it is a very nice fragrance. It's well done. I know people love this, and for good reason. I can see why a lot of people like this fragrance. It's 100% unisex. There's nothing about the fragrance that's feminine leaning, even though there's the word flower in the name. So it's 100% unisex. I know a lot of men like this fragrance. I think this is perfect for the colder weather. I can't see wearing this in the heat or in the summer, maybe in fall or spring, but I think this is perfect for cold weather. And I think this is a fragrance that can easily take you from day to night, although I see this more as a day fragrance, a cold weather, cozy day fragrance. So it's a very comforting, cozy fragrance. Like I said, with these chocolate facets to this cozy amber that's a little smoky, and it's almost like there's oak moss in here, and it feels a little vintagey. So I do appreciate the great qualities of the fragrance, and I will probably continue to wear this a few more times before I decide whether this is staying or going. I don't like to make rash decisions with my fragrances. There are so many fragrances that you think you like, and then it turns out you don't like because our taste changes. And in my fragrance journey personally, fragrances that I loved only 6 months ago, I have sold or I know are not going to stay in my perfume collection. I know I will not wear them, and I'm actually going to put together a video about that. Fragrances that I liked that I no longer wear and that no longer work for me because my taste has changed. So I have revisited fragrances that I thought I didn't like and end up falling in love with. So I don't want to make a rash decision on this one because there is a part of me that likes the fragrance. So I will continue to wear it before I make a final decision on Fiore D'Ambra by Profumum Roma. So that's my take on Profumum Roma's Fiore D'Ambra. If you guys are familiar with this fragrance, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below, and whether you guys are familiar with the house of Profumum Roma, and if there are fragrances in the house that you're fond of and that you've tried that you would suggest. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.